Yes. Got it. Okay. I don't want it to record yet. Okay, do you want to try joining now?
Yeah. Okay.
And share my screen. Carmen, you can see that okay? Yeah. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the official launch of the Region of Queens Land Use Planning Update or review of the region's planning documents. This is the official launch and initial engagement presentation. So if I can get this page to switch, there we go. Just as by way of introductions, my name is Ian Watson. I'm a senior planner with Upland Planning and Design, and we work with municipalities all around Atlantic Canada, especially rural municipalities, on land use planning. And so we've been hired by the municipality to assist with this plan review. I'm joined tonight by my colleague Carmen, who's on the line as well. And then over the course of this project, you'll see the two of us, as well as our other colleague Ryan, who is our engagement manager. She'll be at many of the engagement events. And you won't see Ang Harrod. She's our mapping technician. She does all the maps. But she likes to stay behind the desk, so you won't see her, but she's there quietly working away. So, um, what is this all about? What is this plan review? Why are we here tonight in this meeting? The municipality of the Region of Queens municipality has land use planning documents, and I'll talk about what those are in a second and what they do and don't do. But in those planning documents, there's a policy that says council shall initiate an interim review of this plan at least once every 5 years from the completion of the previous review. The intent of this review is to identify emerging policy issues and gaps in the plan and adopt new or modified plan policies to address these issues and gaps. Or, like I like to say, good plans are not set in stone. So whenever a municipality does planning documents, there's a lot of work that goes into them, a lot of engagement. We do the best job we can with them, but plans change or the context changes, and you don't always get everything right. We're not perfect. So it's really important, just like with a business plan, if you own a business, it's really important to come back regularly and see what's working, what's not working, and uh, make changes as necessary. And so this 5-year review is kind of a interim major review. It's to look at some of those bigger policy issues and make tweaks and adjustments to make the plan work for the next 5 years until the municipality does a major plan review. So I've talked a little bit about plans, but I'm maybe getting my ahead of myself here and should take a step back. What is this planning thing that I'm talking about? What are these planning documents? So in Nova Scotia, we have a piece of legislation called the Municipal Government Act. And what that legislation does is it creates municipalities. They wouldn't exist without legislation. It creates those municipalities, it sets out their responsibilities and also the tools that they have to carry out those responsibilities. So I like to think of it as our toolbox as planners and as municipal officials and staff and all of that. A key tool that we have in that toolbox is land use planning. And the key, or I guess the overarching document in land use planning in Nova Scotia is the municipal planning strategy. It's what I like to think of as the blueprint of the community. It's high level policies, goals, visions that set out where we are today and where we want to go over the next 10, 15 years, and kind of broadly how the municipality intends to achieve that. Then that really goes into force, or you know, really goes into effect through a couple of documents, but a key one is the land use bylaw, which is the zoning. Um, it's the rules and regulations for development. It sets out what types of development can happen where, how big they can be, all those sorts of things. So if you've ever done, if you've ever built a house or opened a business or something like that, you may have gone into the municipality to get a development permit, and they would have looked at the zoning or the land use bylaw, confirmed your zoning, confirmed whatever you were proposing complies with the bylaw, and given you a permit if it did. So you kind of have very high level at the legislation, which funnels down into the plan, which gets into the nitty-gritty in the bylaw. And a key thing is that the bylaw has to be consistent with the plan, and the plan has to be consistent with the act. Yeah, there we go. One of the key things when we talk about that toolbox, as municipalities and as planners, we are again kind of working within that toolbox of the Municipal Government Act. So we do have a lot of tools at our disposal. Things like the ability to regulate lot standards or building placement or building size or the uses permitted on land. That's a really big one. It is called a land use bylaw after all. So, is residential allowed? Is commercial allowed? What types of commercial? All those different things. We can regulate services, accessory buildings, outdoor storage, all sorts of things. And we don't have to regulate all these things. It really comes down to what a community wants and needs. But on the flip side of that, there are things we can't regulate. They're not tools that we have in our toolbox. And obviously, this is not a exhaustive list, but it is a list of things that often come up when I talk to people about planning. So some of the things in Nova Scotia that we can't regulate include resource activities. So through municipal planning, we might regulate sawmills or asphalt plants, permanent asphalt plants, but we don't actually regulate forestry activity like cutting trees for forestry or quarries, that sort of thing. We don't regulate most land below the ordinary high water mark. We don't regulate people. That's a big one. So, we talk about types of housing, that sort of thing, how big it is, how many units, but we don't regulate who lives in it or who can own it. Kind of related to that, we don't regulate land ownership through municipal planning. Nor do we directly regulate taxation. I mean, obviously, municipalities set tax rates and all that sort of thing. But people often ask, are these changes you're making or the zoning, is that going to affect my taxation? And the answer is no. The Not directly, anyways. The province has a third party crown corporation who evaluates the assessment of land essentially based on how it's used, not how it's zoned. And then finally, we don't regulate provincially owned roads and highways. So things like speed limits and all that sort of stuff. That's, or pothole filling or all of that. That always comes up, but it's not part of municipal planning. So fundamentally, what we are doing through the course of this project is working to update that municipal plan, that blueprint, and that land use bylaw, the regulations for development. And again, this is an interim review, so it's not a complete overhaul of the documents. The current documents were actually it was actually a decently long process because COVID hit right in the middle. But the current documents were adopted and went into effect early in 2022. So they're relatively new, but 5 years is time flies, and 5 years is coming up. So the municipality has started this process. And we've actually been asked to look at six key topics as key things to focus on. And I'll talk a little bit more about each of these, but commercial uses in residential zones, short-term rentals, livestock in residential and rural areas, light pollution mitigation, coastal protection, and inland shoreline protection. So again, this is not a comprehensive full overhaul of the documents. We're focusing on specific topics that have come up since the current documents were adopted in 2022. But as much as those are the big ones that we're looking at, this is also an opportunity to review other planning topics. So if there are issues that you want us to look at through this plan review, happy to talk about them at the end of the presentation tonight, or as the project evolves. Happy to dig into other planning topics as well. This is also an opportunity to implement housekeeping amendments. So the municipality's been using these documents now for 4+ years or 4-ish years. In actually using them, you start to notice you might notice typos or things that don't work quite right in the zoning or in the land use bylaw. Minor things like that, that this is an opportunity to fix them. And then finally, this is an opportunity to make sure the documents comply with provincial regulations. So the province occasionally puts out new regulations for municipalities through that Municipal Government Act on what their planning documents must do. Usually things of provincial level interest. So there's some tweaks that need to be made to align with provincial requirements for wind turbines, for example. There's a little bit of stuff that we'll need to do with flooding as well. So there's just minor things that need to be done to line up with those provincial regulations. So that's kind of the big picture of what this is all about. But I did want to touch on, actually, before I do that, I guess I should touch on what to expect or the timeline for all of this. So we've actually been working on this since the spring, working with the municipality's planning advisory committee to kind of set the tone for the project and map out what we need to do over the coming months. We've been doing background analysis, getting our feet under us, and now we're here, yay, with the official launch publicly of the project. And we will have this first phase of engagement kind of over the spring and into the early summer. And again, this is getting your ideas, having discussions about what directions we should take on all these various topics, getting a sense of what the residents of Queens want these documents to do. We're going to take everything that we hear from this first phase of engagement, and we'll work with the Planning Advisory Committee to set a direction for initial proposals. Essentially, we will draft up initial proposals for changes to these documents. And at that point, they're very much drafted. They're technical, they're written down, they're specific, but they are drafts. It's something tangible that people can read and review and respond to. We will take those back out in that draft form, very much draft, to get your feedback on what did we get right? What did we miss the mark on? What's missing? What needs to be changed? And we'll be doing that in the fall to hear your feedback. And then finally, we'll work again with the Planning Advisory Committee to set a final direction and bring final amendments closer to the end of the year. As part of that final amendments, final plan stage, for the kind of a third round of engagement, which is a public hearing. So before council considers adopting these, or before council adopts any amendments, they hold a formal public hearing where there's an opportunity to come, stand up, say your bit right to council before they do any sort of vote. So it's kind of three main stages of engagement, but hopefully by the time we've got to that point, we've ironed out any concerns or issues and really have final draft amendments that people can get behind. So, just wanted to touch, I guess, a little bit on these topics, these key topics that we're going to be looking at. And I'll put it up on the screen a little later tonight. There will be a series of workshops around the municipality to dig a little deeper into each of these topics. But one of the key issues that we've been asked to look at is commercial uses in residential zones. Primarily home occupations. Now, granted that photo there is not a home occupation. It's a non-conforming use in a residential area. It's a commercial use that existed previously. But one of the key topics to look at is kind of home occupations and other residential uses in commercial areas and how we can make those work best. These businesses play an important role in supporting both urban and rural neighborhoods. There's economic development there. There's the provision of services to surrounding areas. But there's also potential concerns about neighborhood impacts. When you have a business next to a home, there can be traffic, excuse me, noise, that sort of thing. So making sure, essentially what we've been tasked with is making sure that that the rules and scale and type of businesses that can be considered in different areas are compatible with the surrounding area while supporting, economic development and some of the things that have come up in the municipality previously. Again, are those concerns about impacts, especially in more urban areas? Whereas, the municipality's heard some concerns or I guess concerns in other rural areas where perhaps the flexibility for commercial uses is not enough, that there's a desire to do more. So, looking at how can we make sure the types of uses, the locations for the uses, and the regulations around them really strike that right balance. Another major issue that we've been asked to look at is short-term rentals. Um, this is a sector that's always evolving, and just for reference point, people often call this Airbnbs or VRBOs or that sort of thing, but essentially what we're talking about is the rental of a dwelling to on a short-term basis, less than 28 days typically. It's a growing industry, and it's certainly there's many of them in Queens in various areas. They provide tourism accommodations. They provide income streams for the property owners. But again, like the commercial uses, there's also the potential for impacts with people coming and going, and traffic and noise, people on vacation, that sort of thing, having different expectations than perhaps people who live in the area. Um, Over the past couple of years, there have been a number of, I guess, requests to the municipality to make changes to the rules or to rezone a particular property or to enter into what's called a development agreement for different areas to allow short-term rentals. Essentially, there's been a desire to have them in various areas that the rules have not accommodated through the bylaw. So people have asked for changes in zoning, changes in what's permitted on their property. So again, making sure that the rules are enabling this type of development that clearly there's a desire for, but also understanding that there's conflicts that come with that or potential conflicts that come with that, and that the rules need to be established in a way that mitigates those, that reduces that potential for conflict and protects surrounding residents. Hmm. Can never get this to switch. There we go. Livestock in rural and residential areas is another key topic. So currently, the planning documents actually have a number of different provisions to allow livestock throughout Queens. There's a broad provision, for example, that allows 10 chickens or rabbits anywhere. Kind of the backyard scale chicken keeping. There's also the ability for household scale farms in certain areas. So in rural areas, hamlets, there's an ability to have, a couple of sheep or goats or horses or cows, depending on the size of your land. And then if you're going to get into that full scale commercial level where you're kind of an intensive livestock operation, there's much more strict requirements about where you can be. And we've heard some concerns that the current regulations could be overly restrictive. There's a lot of growing interest in self-sustainability, local food, um, food security. So there's a desire from people to have chickens, small livestock, that sort of thing. And you know, people finding that anybody can do the 10 chickens, but maybe people are finding that they can't do goats or something like that based on where they are in the municipality or based on the size of their land. So some concerns that perhaps the regulations are too restrictive. On the other hand, again, like anything in all of this, there's the concerns about impacts. If your neighbor has livestock, there's smells that come with that. There's noises that come with that. There's um, considerations around food storage and manure. So Again, this is an opportunity to really review that balance and make sure that it's working the best it can, and maybe it's different in different areas of the municipality. Uh, Light pollution is another key issue that we'll be digging into through this project. So, obviously, outdoor lighting is a really important, I guess, infrastructure in our society. It provides safety, it provides an ability to see where we're going and get around, security. But on the other side of it, excessive lighting and poorly designed lighting can have a real impact on the visibility of the night sky, on day-night cycles for wildlife, for the ability for wildlife to migrate, all those sorts of things that can affect our own day-night cycles as well. So, we want to make sure that lighting, outdoor lighting, is achieving its intended effect of security and safety without negatively impacting the natural environment and our own enjoyment of the great outdoors as well. So again, as kind of the theme of all of this is looking at that balance, making sure that we have regulations that achieve those goals of safety, security, but also protecting the outdoors and our enjoyment of it as well. So we'll be digging into whether current regulations are enough or there needs to be uh, more stricter standards for outdoor lighting, perhaps on the design of light fixtures or the brightness of them or the color of them, and the practicality of implementing those changes for uh, both in terms of landowners and in terms of the regulation of it. Mhm. Come on, real trouble here. Oh, there we go. Coastal protection. This is another really big one. Queens is an extensive coastline, as I'm sure you're well aware. It's one of its defining features, and it's where, especially over the last couple of years, with the boom in development, there's been a substantial amount of development in coastal areas. And these planning documents, when they went into effect, at the time they were being developed, the province was considering province-wide coastal regulations, and ultimately chose not to move forward with those and left the onus on municipalities to develop coastal regulations, and Queens kind of preempted that. At the time, it wasn't clear where those provincial regulations were going to go, so Queens preempted that and established coastal regulations in its planning documents. Um, then, kind of as a bridge or as a stopgap until it was clear what was happening with the province. And as I mentioned, the province deferred to municipalities and has given a number of resources to municipalities in terms of guidance around coastal regulation, that sort of thing. So a key thing here is looking at, um, are the municipalities' regulations enough? Are they touching on the things that they need to touch on? Now that they really are we're not gonna be deferring to the province again in the future. This is the key tool for coastal regulation. Um, is what the municipality has enough. So looking at those provisions around, the potential for flooding from sea level rise, from storm surge, as well as the potential for erosion in coastal areas and the hazards that brings. Um, Making sure again that the municipalities' regulations really are doing what they need to do and both protecting coastal areas and protecting humans from the hazards that can be found in coastal areas. Kind of related to that, or in the same vein, I suppose, is shoreline protection. And so inland water courses are our streams, our lakes, our wetlands. These are important environments. They provide recreation opportunities. They're essential to the rural character, and most importantly, perhaps, they're really important environments for fish, rare plant species, amphibians, reptiles, all those different birds. These are key rich environments, and they are very sensitive environments. They can be easily damaged by development. So, a key thing again is to look at the municipality currently has regulations in these areas. There are minimum buffers from watercourses from major watercourses, for example. There are regulations around clearing vegetation when you're doing development near watercourses. So a key thing is looking and making sure that these regulations are doing all they can to preserve our watercourses. Uh, Making sure that the tools are in place that make sure the long-term health of the watercourses are preserved. And, exploring whether those regulations should be expanded beyond major watercourses. Are there other areas that are applicable? These are all things that we'll be digging into through this project. So those, as I mentioned, are the major topics, kind of key focus areas for this plan review. But that is, of course, as I said at the start, not everything we'll be looking at. We're interested in hearing from you what other topics need to be reviewed and discussed and potentially updated in these planning documents. So there are several ways to get involved over this initial engagement period. Obviously, you're here tonight, so that's great. That's the first way. The project webpage is live. It is speakupland.ca/queens dash plan. And that will be the hub for the project. So any documents will go up on there. All the information about meetings, that sort of stuff will be on there. This video will be posted on there. There is also currently a survey on there that touches on these key topics that I talked about tonight, as well as an opportunity to write about whatever topic matters to you. There's also an online map where you can zoom in and leave. You can, if there's an area of interest where you have a planning issue that you want to bring to our attention, you can drop a little pin on it, leave a comment, suggest an idea. Um, whatever you need to do to point out issues in the region. There is also, as I mentioned, community workshops coming up, and I'll flip to a slide in a second with details on those. Really encourage you to come to those, and more importantly, to bring your family, friends, maybe enemies, to come to those sessions and really hash out these topics and get into the nitty-gritty of how should we be talking about coastal issues or livestock or whatever matters to you. And finally, if you have specific questions, concerns, or would just like to chat more with us one-on-one, you can always contact us, consultation at uplandstudio.ca, or by calling us 902-423-0649, extension 103. And as promised, here are the details about the community workshops. So this is the round one, again, the initial engagement. We'll have another series when we come back with draft amendments. But for now, for the initial engagement, there's 5 workshops. Tried to spread them around the municipality. The first is Tuesday, June 23rd in Liverpool at the Americentre. There will be another that week in North Queens and Caledonia. A third early or first half of July in Port Mattoon, fourth in Beach Meadows, and then finally fifth in Greenfield. So encourage you to come out to all of those or one of those or whatever's most convenient. They will all touch on, there will be an opportunity, all of them, to discuss any topic. Though we will try to tailor them a little bit to the area. We might focus a little more on coastal issues in Port Mattoon or Beach Meadows, and maybe a little more on uh, light pollution in Greenfield. Who knows? We'll see how people are feeling and focus on the topics that are important to the area and to the people at the meetings. But encourage you to come out and participate. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording. And if I do that, second.